back to see you. So thanks for having me today. I'll try and be short and sweet and share some things that I've learned. And if it's useful, take it and run with it. If it's not useful, please leave it. But I ended up going to Poway, to middle school and high school there, and then to SDSU for college. And I was well on my way to becoming a psychologist, so I thought. One semester shy of a degree, and I quit, or should I say failed, to be honest. I failed out, and that's because I got to a point where I couldn't really see myself doing something I didn't love, and I thought I loved that, and it turns out I didn't love it enough to go all the way. So after I dropped out, failed, quit, I had that time to think, like, well, now what? And the answer that came was, well, do what you love, man. If you're going to do anything, it's better to try and fail at what you love than to try and fail at something you don't have any feeling for. So it went back to one of my earliest memories. I was 7 or 8 years old, and there was, Life magazine pictures of the Olympics, and there was something about the greatest athlete at the time was a swimmer, and there's this shot in there of this gold medalist swimming. And I became a swimmer. I don't know how direct that was, but it definitely had an influence on my imagination. And I competed and was good enough to go to the Junior Olympics and was looking to go to the Olympics. And right when I would have gone to the Olympics was when the Summer Games were held in Moscow. And the Soviets, the Russians, went into Afghanistan, and all bets are off. The U.S. boycotted the Olympics for the first time in history. No go to the Olympics, man. That big dream ended, bang, with one boycott. So it's pretty amazing to think how many years later I would end up in Afghanistan, back at that place, working on a human rights thing on behalf of women and young girls, and end up at the Olympic complex that the Russians built at the top of the highest hill in Kabul, which is the capital, and realize that this 50-meter pool, in fact, I think I got a picture of it. Sometimes words don't do enough. You gotta have that picture.
Want to try to get to it?
Down here. There it is. There's the picture. So this strange picture is like the full circle of my life. This is the Olympic, what's left of the Olympic complex in Afghanistan from the Russians, right? An empty 50-meter pool, the 3-meter, 5 and 10-meter platform, right? And what I learned was sport and politics had sort of ruined my chances as an athlete, as a young person, not much older than you. And when I got to this place, full of conflict, war, and all this stuff, my guide, my fixer, told me this is the place where the Taliban would execute people as a public spectacle. And it kind of hit home with me that sport and politics are almost inseparable in many ways, right? So when I was sort of denied that chance to fulfill the dream, to be, to see if I was good enough to go, I think it kind of fueled me for the rest of my life to be as close to sport as I could and the people in it, because I had some sensibility, I had some rich sense of unfulfilled, dream or expectation, right? So these are kind of my people for the largest part of my career was spent working with athletes from Nike and Adidas and others. And this sort of origin story might have a little bit to do with that. Yeah. So the way this is set up with the notes, I can't just slide. Let's get that here. Okay. So when I was there, naturally, I was working on this sort of humanitarian stuff. That was the main reason to go. But when I had any time off to myself, I ran away to go look at the sports people play, because my understanding of the world is sort of seen through what games people play, how they compete. It tells me something about the culture that is almost underneath everything else. Wrestling is massive there. Fighting in any form, even down to the kites. When you're flying kites in Afghanistan. It isn't just for the fun of looking at them.
Knock each
They
other out.
battle them, right? If you've read Kite Runner or seen the beautiful film on the same thing, it's like competitive and possessive, and I mean, we're talking about gluing glass shards onto the string so that you can cut your opponent's stuff. I mean, it's kind of crazy and beautiful. We also have this fantastic horse culture, which goes back to ancient times, and it's the world's most dangerous game. It's called Buzkashi. Have you guys seen Buzkashi? Imagine rugby, but on horseback. Like, just piling into each other. I mean, I'm on foot here running around, and there's an object in the middle of all this stuff that is, it's not a ball, it's a goat. Buzkashi means goat in Dari, right? So the goat is the object. You have to grab it amongst this, mosh pit of horses and men, right? Kind of gnarly stuff. But it also reminded me that, it reminded me that the culture is very much like that. It's might makes right, brute force rules the day. There's even corruption where people are allowed to pay off the referee so they can cheat and get a goal. So the warlords play, and they're nothing. These big fat pot-bellied guys go up on their horse, and everybody kind of gets out of the way. And you're like, wait, the fix is in. It's a mirror. It's a mirror to the culture's goings-on outside of the sport. So something that I've always found really fascinating. Okay, yeah, it's cool stuff, right? It's super cool. So when you're in a class and you're playing with photography, maybe for the first time, and it has all the potential to be fun, creative, and expressive, this mantra is what they use in Cirque du Soleil, which is one of the most creative groups that I've ever come across. There's 12 permanent shows in Vegas of all different themes. My sweetheart was in the O show, the water show. And when they sit down to create a new show, like, how do you reinvent yourself? How do you come up with something new when you've sort of done it all? This is their mantra. It's really simple. It's three things: invoke, provoke, and evoke. Invoke, which is sort of to recognize, like, who's come before you that rocked your world. Who are you looking at, in musicians and movies and music, wherever you are drawing your inspiration from, and remember that. Take that with you because it's part of you. Provoke. I always took that as sort of almost physical. You're kind of poking somebody with an idea, right? There's what is it you're doing that's provocative, right? And evoke is, can you land on something where people feel something? Have you affected them in some way, for better or worse? So I'm going to give you this, which is kind of a secret thing. And if you have any sensibility about, well, I'm frustrated and I don't know how to even generate the kind of creative ideas that I want to play with, it's not a bad place to start, at least for me.
And how to express yourself,
Yeah.
and how you feel about the subject.
So I'll give you one example. Invocation, right? Like, this guy here was my student at one point. And the lineage of going through that school means that we're passing along something important, right? So when I dropped out of SDSU and went to this place in Los Angeles, I didn't have a large body of work to evidence my talent yet, but the teachers that inspired me took a chance, right? I was nothing but potential, but they were kind enough to see something in me, right? So in terms of paying that back, that's what teaching's about. So my kid comes home from school. Thank you, you beat me to it. He's 7 years old. He's down at the karate class. First week, he comes home and says, "Dad, guess what?" And I said, "What?" "What's the highest form of learning?" I said, "I don't know, Julian. What's the highest form of learning?" He says, "Teaching." I'm like, "Okay, who told you that? Who said that?" "Socrates." I'm like, "Who's Socrates?" He says, "Greek philosopher." "And where did you learn that?" He goes, "Sensei Dan." I'm like, of course, Sensei Dan was, who's this guy? Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's first disciple was my kid's teacher. So you start to see these connections from the previous generation of the Master Jedi, right, to the apprentice. You guys are young Jedis. You really are at your best potential. So the question is, what will you become? Will you turn to the dark side, right? Or will you be part of the Rebel Alliance? Anyhow, I was I was touched by that because it reminded me to stay humble when I could have told my kid, yeah, what's the highest form of learning? I always could have even argued with him. But instead, I just held myself back a little bit to hear what he's going to say. And he kind of rocked my world. It was like, yeah, of course. He reminded me that this lineage goes all the way down through him to me again. So I was very grateful. So this is kind of fun. After working in Afghanistan, my partner's 13-year-old daughter wanted to follow in her footsteps as an activist, but not with women's rights or human rights, but with endangered species, and big cats in particular. So she decided to take her daughter out of school for a year, homeschool her around the world by going around to meet all these great researchers in the field of the endangered species. And this is the document.
I'm gonna figure out how to make it straight.
Endangered activism is a mother-daughter project that is helping save endangered species while promoting youth activism. Snow leopards are my favorite animal, and so I was thinking about how I really love snow leopards and how if they went extinct or other animals went extinct, how horrible it would be to never actually be able to see one in the wild because they'd all be gone.
What I hope with this project and with this journey of traveling abroad together, and I hope that it sparks her curiosity to be able to voice what moves her and what she gets excited about more and more. The goal of endangered activism is to see if we can hook kids when they're still excited and hopeful that they can be involved in creating change before they lose that hopefulness and that eagerness to be part of making the world a better place.
My favorite thing was definitely feeding the cheetahs. Cheetahs, they're just so cool and they're so fast, and it was really cool to be able to basically hand feed them.
Hug me.
Now you combine me and what? Yes!
The more that she gets to interview scientists and conservationists and artists and filmmakers and people who are living and breathing their own passions, that sparks her own interests to explore the world in different ways. I think that the real fun with this is the ability to do this with my daughter. I can't imagine anything better.
So there's a good example of like following your passion into something that's the next gen. So starting from just a simple sport photography kind of experience on my part, that led me to going out on expedition and traveling to faraway places like being in the Himalaya or New Zealand, which is where they filmed Lord of the Rings, and they didn't need CGI for those great backdrops because it's all right there. And getting this sort of love of nature and the environment and caring about it enough to see that there's a lot going on with climate change and this kind of stuff. And so the rosette, thank you for putting that up. There's a little play button. Let's see if it'll play right there.
You want to back this Kickstarter for an exciting new graphic novel that I co-wrote. The Rosette is a teenage superhero who can shapeshift, and her snow leopard sidekick, Himalaya. Hi, my name is Devin. I'm 13 years old and I created the Rosette. The Rosette was born with the power to shapeshift, which allowed her to fight alongside the animal world to stop wildlife crime and prevent extinction. Himalaya mentors her abilities and trains her in her hometown of Breckenridge, Colorado. She's invisible to everyone except the Rosette, but she leaves behind some footprints. Her footprints turned into a straight art project last fall to bring Himalaya out of the literary world and into the real world. My mother and I started writing this together on a wildlife conservation research trip to Namibia last year with endangered activism. and we continued to write and create the story in various cities while I was being homeschooled. The goal is to write additional adventures in the future for the Rosette. Each issue is set in the country where we have researched wildlife conservation, showcasing local solutions to global.
Okay. Go ahead and stop that there. You get the idea. She's created a graphic novel, which is going to come to life as its own comic book, and the street art aspect's just kind of taken off because they've developed a whole graffiti, wall pasting, and things that call attention to the particular animals that are in question. And it's just beautiful activism. It's art, it's out in the environment, it's highly visible, and in fact it's gotten us invited to speak in San Francisco for the 50th anniversary this year of Earth Day, based on climate change and how it affects things. And you say, well, you look at a big cat like this, how is an apex predator affected by climate change? And you may think, well, they're at the top of the food chain, what could be so bad about that? And in fact, this cat is more endangered because of climate change than any other reason. When you connect the dots between drought in Africa and the agricultural system going bad, where meager farmers lose their livelihood overnight because of that climate change, and then they're terribly tempted to the lucrative black market of poaching. And that's a real life and death thing for a predator like this. So that's one of the things that we'll be talking about. Do you want to show this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is kind of a situation where his background in sports photography really helped him capture a moment because he has so much experience prior, and to even be able to capture a moment like this is something that doesn't happen ever, where a leopard actually comes out in the daytime to hunt. And this leopard was a mom of 2 cubs, and they'd been tracking it for about 2 weeks, and they had a successful hunt for feeding her cubs. And so she was getting pretty desperate, and so it presented a situation where he's using, we have some zooms here to go to 300 millimeters. He had a zoom that was 800 millimeters, so it's more than double the focal length. So he's focusing on the subject over like a football field length away, trying to keep a steady shot, and he's also shooting super slow motion to capture this kind of high frame rate.
Yeah, it's a moment of Zen that talks about this hunt and the experience. You see, we'll go out with the guide and the spotter. It's just my experience.
This is in Botswana?
Yes, Botswana, Africa.
Kind of cool abstraction with the textures. So that's the driver who kind of is helping track, and that's the spotter that will spot the animal. Well, look at the amount of force to. So is it gazelle or impala?
Impala.
Yeah, impala is like 200 pounds, twice as big and heavy.
And that's the big male. The male is actually on the outside of the herd protecting all the females and the does. And it's super unusual for the female leopardess to take on a buck like that at risk of being injured or killed.
And she's also leaving her 2 cubs exposed as she goes and hunts, leaving them in danger, which is why they usually don't hunt in the daytime. They do it at night when the cubs are more protected.
So, yeah, I think what Justin was referring to is that incredibly fortunate circumstance to be there at the right time, the right place, and to continue. The only reason we got that was the right combination of things lined up, and we were ready. So, everything that we had done for 2 weeks in tracking her and not finding this situation, and not giving up, I should add, we didn't give up. This is the last hours, the last day that I was there. So, you could say, well, that's lucky, but yeah, we were also really well prepared to make every minute count. And in terms of actually getting that moment, I had to retrain the driver, who had the reflex built in to take off as soon as he saw an attack like that, because he was used to still photographers who would want to get close right away and shoot, the struggle and that kind of stuff. And And so earlier in the week, we had shot some other cheetahs and lions and things like that. And every time that something happened, he'd take off and the video shot was ruined. Because if you move just one tiny inch here at 800 millimeters, yeah, it's like out of control in real life down the line. So anyhow.
Does anybody know the fastest woman alive?
RuPaul?
Yeah. So Carmelita Jeter is the project she works on up in LA, training young athletes to maybe get them inspired to go and to become Olympic hopefuls. I'm sure most of you guys are probably watching the Summer Olympics in Tokyo this summer. And so it's kind of a cool project Tony worked on for Nike for their equality campaign, and showing how they're trying to get access to all kids and all generations. And so it starts off with the drone shot, and then it goes into some lower kind of finish. It's just a quick vid.
To the athletes, I always say, be fearless, be strong. Equality to me means the playing field being even. Some people are afraid to fight. When people come together, more people will fight because they know they're not fighting by themselves. You run a relay blind. You don't get to turn around and grab the stick. You have to go and hope your sister puts the stick in your hand. The number one thing I believe when I'm coaching or I'm mentoring anyone is for you to leave me with a little more heart, with a little more drive, with a little more something. I'm gonna speak greatness into you. We all should be running towards greatness.
Pretty cool campaign.
Yeah, great teachers, right? So that's my challenge to you guys. From this moment on, if you're not already in the business of finding the greatest teacher that you can find.
Or coach or mentor.
Yes, exactly right. In any subject, whatever that thing is that you love and you care about. Even if it's not presented to you, like here and now. Who is it that you can name or point to that hints at something that you'd like to be doing, if you could? And pay respect to that person. At my age, I'm still writing fan letters to people I admire, and that's not a fanboy thing. For example, any of you guys watch movies like at the Academy Awards? You see there's a guy named El Chivo, Emmanuel Lubezki, who's a director of photography for the cinematographer, and he won 3 years running for 3 different films: Gravity and Birdman. The Revenant with Leo DiCaprio. Did you guys see Revenant? Can you see R-rated films? Are you guys too young?
Some. They watch like horror movies.
So, now I've never worked with this guy, but I admired his work so much, and then 3 times over, I could not wait to write him just an acknowledgement of the work, that I admired it, respected it, would love to work with him. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to answer me, it doesn't mean he's going to hire me, it doesn't mean he's going to call me, but the fact that I'm practicing, just reaching out to somebody that I admire and respect for the work they do, and just giving it the smallest tip of my hat, that actually affects how I look at the world then through a camera. Because my camera then is influenced by what I'm recognizing as, that's beautiful right there. Why? Because I'm building it into my reflex, right? So when you pick up a camera, okay, can you all do this? 2 hands, 2 fingers. All right. Now you're directors. You're putting a frame on the world, right? Some people are doing this. It's a little different. This wide angle telephoto, right? So you're looking at what's the important thing to put in and what's the important thing to keep out, right?
We can go into the demo. I just want to make sure because of the time.
Yeah. It's the demo time. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions before I get the demo going?
What do I like about it? It gives us something to keep and hold on to. You know, like Kobe Bryant was killed, and I had only met him the one time that I worked with him. But that photo, you know, that I had that experience with him, sort of an intimate portrait. Yeah, I mean, I felt really sad. I couldn't do anything about it, but I had this experience that it reminded me of. And so there's something, I don't know, something comforting about that, even though he's gone and it's unthinkable, the tragedy of losing his daughter and their friends. Like that had serious impact on me. Now, I wasn't his best friend or anything, but I did have this experience. So in a way, I have a little less regret because I kept kind of a promise to myself. I'm so glad you asked that. It's a huge question. That I took the time to be drawn towards people that I admired or respected or who I think are doing something special, and making that kind of clear that I admire what you're doing. That's what sitting for a portrait with somebody is kind of about, is that you're trusting me to come close to you and I'm going to look at you for a little bit. That can be kind of intense. You know, if you're just two people in a room looking at each other, it's kind of intense. And it has to feel good, otherwise you're going to be like, I don't like the way that you're looking at me. What if you make me look bad? All those things. But if there's trust involved, and it's like, think about when you're meeting somebody for the first time. We have to be careful. We got to see, do I trust this person? Are they cool? Are they not cool? Right? This is the experience of making a portrait where we're introduced. There's supposed to be the good reasons why I'm going to make him look good. He trusts me. And that experience is something that I'm very grateful for, because I've done it over and over again, having kept a promise to myself that I really do want to acknowledge people I think are great or make a difference in my world. So photography is just one way of having permission to do that, to meet these people, to even go behind the scenes for a little while. Like I probably remember more about talking about him taking Italian lessons, because he didn't speak Italian at the time, so he was taking tutors for Italian. And because I'm Italian, I could speak Italian with him, so we had that. Like I can remember those things, right? So it's a way of remembering. It's a way of remembering things. You know, like one of my favorite photographers used to say, photography is a way of shouting. Like, what are you excited about? And if you looked at my stuff, you could see, well, he's kind of into the adventure, and he's going to far corners of the world, and there's definitely sport and this kind of stuff. So you can see I'm shouting about a certain kind of thing that I like or that I love. So does that answer your question? It's kind of close to the heart, I think.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Just sprint it out. Sprint, 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 sprint. Perfect. 1, 2, 3. Hit your mark. Boom, like a pro. If you guys want to change your angles, maybe try a low angle, try a different point of view. All right, ready, Krumi? So focus on your mark. You want to hit that mark, okay? Where it crosses. On 3, ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfecto.